All right. So everyone is here and accounted for: Shanati, Aaron, Stacy, myself, and Angela. So Angela, if you don't mind going first, do your reviews for Stacy and Aaron.
All right, Stacy, I'm going to start with your D, if that's okay. I felt like your D was a very strong artifact. You did a good job of using your external sources, things of that nature. The biggest thing that I was just a little bit concerned with is that I saw where you used 6A in your analysis and your 6C, but I think maybe you might have left out, and I could just not have found it. It was long artifact, but I think you might have left out the 6B, the school data image, the breakdown of the different subgroups. So I would just go back and look into that. But all of the parts of the component that you or rubric that you did address, you did a very good job. It was very detailed. It was clear that your team had analyzed and looked at all the data. So just go back and look and see about that school data image part. Like I said, that's where they have like your students with disabilities, your I don't know, black subgroups, white subgroups, all of that category. That was the part I think that maybe you just need to focus a little bit more on. I didn't see very many grammar errors, just a couple, and they're very small, but I did make note of those for you. So if you have questions about that, just email me or whatever, but it's just little tiny things like maybe a comma here or something like that. You did a very good job of putting your descriptors at the end of your artifact, within your artifact, and I feel like you addressed all of the ones that were required for this one. Your references were solid. They were in both the text and the reference section. So overall, I think your artifact was very good. I would just focus on the part of the rubric where, like I said, I feel like you might have just left out the data image part. So that's D. Do you have questions? Did I go too fast?
No, you're fine.
Okay.
All
right.
So then that means there's not a whole lot of stuff.
No, yours were I thought they were pretty good anyways. 60, same thing. I did put, as far as your sources, you might want to use just a couple of more, either from the courses or some other data. But again, it was pretty good because a lot of them were the same that you used in D. You're just adding the budget component, but there might be something from the finance book or something that you can put in there. Again, the rubric looked like you did a good job of unpacking that. I did put that maybe there was a couple of times you said that the PTO funds would be used. I think one of them was like $20 for, food, snacks, that sort of thing. Maybe just to help clarify to the reader that you put that those were actually available, because in the rubric it says, are the funds available or not? Or like, is it something you're going to have to, like, does the PTO have to fundraise for it in order to make it available? So I would just maybe add one little sentence to clarify that to each one of those that you put in there. Okay. Again, critical thinking I felt was evident. I really liked how you broke down the physical capital and your human capital recommendations. It was written very professionally. Now, I did not see any grammar errors in this one. I wouldn't swear to it, but I didn't see any. I really liked your headings. It was well organized. And again, your descriptors were in there. So overall, I feel like yours are pretty close to submission ready.
Thank you.
And you said you want me to go ahead and do Aaron's too?
Yes, please.
Okay. Hang on. Now, Aaron, I'm just going to do your 6D, right?
Okay.
All right. And I feel like yours were, it looks like you're going to have several external sources, and a lot of times you put cite your source here, but they're not actually cited yet. Were you all the way finished? Or most of the way finished, Aaron?
I am.
With 6D?
Right.
Okay. Because it looked like there was the recommendations. I didn't see that part of it.
Okay.
Was that in there where you made the recommendations?
I'd have to pull it back up again and take a look at it first.
Okay. All right. So I think it looks like I said, where you made reference to, I'm going to cite a source here, but you didn't actually cite it yet. So it looked like you were just finishing up in some places. Maybe I look at the wrong one. So the rubric, like I said, it looks like you're on your way to unpacking it, but I was just worried about at the very end it says, hang on. I'm sorry. I really liked how you had the questions that you had for your teachers that you asked during your meeting, and it looked like you had your data. But like I said, even when I'm looking at the appendix, like it had your discussion, but there wasn't anything there, and the conclusions, that part wasn't filled in. Does that make sense?
Are you saying the conclusion wasn't listed?
Right. In your agenda topics on your appendix, it's Appendix B.
I'm scanning through my artifact as we speak.
It's on page 12.
Okay, I'm there.
Okay, and so it says discussion. So I see that you're thanking them for being able to be there, all that kind of stuff. And then it's got agenda topics. But then,
Okay, yes, I need to go
feel
back.
like, yeah, that's what I meant. Like there's just a few things I think that you're really
Right.
close to finishing up. But I think once that's in there, that's the whole picture. You know, those evidences, putting that in there.
Okay. Yeah, at first I thought you were talking about my conclusion at the very end.
Oh,
of
no.
the artifact.
That
But
part I thought was good.
Okay, I see where you're at now.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I'll go back and correct that.
No, that's fine. Like I said, I felt like it's probably just one of those things, you're just getting it in there and then you forget to go back and look over it or whatever. I mean, I've done the same thing. So like I said, I really like the focus group questions. I like how you had that in there. You definitely looked at your data. But like in the parentheses, like for example, on page 6, you've got just citation. And so the actual citation isn't actually there. That's what I mean as far as it looks like there's just a few things you've got to finish up. But overall, I feel like you're definitely on the right track. Let's see. You talked about your technology, all that kind of stuff. And then in your actual conclusion part, it says a report will be generated on the findings to be presented to the principal and the school improvement team.
Right.
And that's what I feel like once you get that in there, you are going to have hit all of those components. So once we see that recommendation list, and I imagine that's what you're going to talk about in E with the budget, I think that is the component that you got to focus on as far as the rubric's concerned. But I mean, everything's organized, everything's labeled clearly, it was written professionally. I think once that's in there, you're pretty solid and good to go.
Well, as far as the recommendations are concerned, under the improving community and support, those bulleted lists are some of those recommendations, but I guess I can go in specific detail in each
Well, then
one
I
of those.
just got confused. I'm very sorry.
That's fine.
So that's my fault, and I will go back and look at that for you. Yes. Okay, I understand now. So those were the recommendations from the team, those bullet points.
I still need to probably go back and clarify that. If you had some difficulties making that connection, then that tells me that I can go back and improve it.
Okay. All right. Well, that's, like I said, I feel like it flowed well. Everything was clearly labeled. I think everything's there. I was just confused on the recommendation part. I'm sorry. I apologize about that. Sometimes I have an off day, though, so it might not have been your artifact necessarily.
No, that's fine.
That's basically it, unless you have other questions for me.
I don't, but thank you so much.
All right.
All right, I think Stacy, you're next with Aaron and Shinati.
All right. Aaron, I'll start with yours for your 6D. Let's see. As far as your external sources, you use the NC report card and the DCI website. You use specific decisions and facts within the artifact. I saw that you assembled a team of stakeholders, and it was kind of harder to see your recommendations, like Angela said. I kind of had to dig for it a little bit. So maybe just going back through and labeling those as far as your recommendations a little bit more clear. I thought you done it, you unpacked the rubric very well. And you described the clinical experience and showed through the artifact. The artifact was written professionally, and all acronyms were identified the first time. There was just one little mistake on page 6. Constitution is spelled with the O-N instead of a A-N at the end. Part.
Guys, can you all hear that negative feedback, or it's just me? I'm having a hard time hearing Stacy.
Yeah, I hear it too.
Yeah, I hear it.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
I can. Last thing I heard you was on page 6, and then I then couldn't hear anything after that.
On page 6, Caucasian is spelled with the O-N at the end instead of an A-N. So just
Okay.
But that's the only spelling mistake that I saw. The artifact was structured in a manner that was very organized. You presented a table for the school data project. This is just a suggestion. When I was reading it, I felt like it was all kind of jumbled up together maybe. But maybe put a space in between the end of your paragraph and the next topic. And it may have just been me and my computer the way it was formatting it. So that was just a suggestion. It's up to you if you want to do that.
Okay.
So I didn't see any descriptors in the artifact or at the end of the artifact or within the artifact, so maybe go back and add some of those in there. And your references were cited at the end and within the artifact. Overall, I think you did a good job. Just go back and maybe put the descriptors in and fix that little spelling mistake and label those recommendations. But overall, you did a good job.
Thank you, Stacy.
All righty. Is it Shanati?
Shanetta.
Okay. Shanetta?
Yeah, I'll answer either though.
Okay. I'll probably butcher it the whole time we're talking, so I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Okay. For 6D, your course content, you use course content and external sources. Some of the course content, you use the principal, creative leadership for excellence in schools and engaging stakeholders. You use the NC report card and the teaching working condition survey. I thought you assembled, I saw that you assembled a team to complete the focus group project. You also received the feedback on the findings of the data. So overall, I think you did everything that the rubric asked. You showed a depth of critical thinking and a depth of understanding. You clearly described the clinical experience with working with the school improvement team and the focus group team. As far as grammar and spelling, there was a couple of things I would add a comma behind on page 8, where it talks about under the background description of school settings, behind Mount Holly, where it says Mount Holly, North Carolina, I would put a comma behind Mount Holly just to kind of break it up. And same thing with Charlotte. It needs a comma behind it in that same paragraph. And then on page 78, Dibbles should be 1 L. I think you accidentally added another L in there. Let's see. But other than that, I didn't see any more grammar or spelling mistakes. I loved your graphs. They were very colorful, and it was easy to follow the information in your graph. As far, this is just a suggestion about putting headings on all of the same side of the artifact. Some of them are aligned in the middle, maybe putting them all on one side so it's easier to kind of follow. That's totally up to you, whatever you want to do with that. That was just a suggestion. And the same thing with putting a space in between the end of the paragraph and starting a new topic, because it kind of looked like it was all there together.
Like, did you not tell when one heading started and the next one began? Is that what you mean?
I couldn't see it clear. Like, I couldn't see where they all started on the same side. They were kind of ones that started with the indentation of the paragraph, and maybe move those over on the edge of it, so you can just kind of pick them up a little bit easier.
Okay. I did APA formatting, so you have to indent depending on the. It's strange. Yeah, okay.
But that's up to you. You can do it anyway, however it's working out for you. As far as the descriptors, I didn't see any used within the artifact, and at the end of the artifact, I know that you use like the principal standards and stuff, but I didn't see the descriptors being used for that artifact. So maybe go back. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. The reflection, those North Carolina standard executive, those are the descriptors.
Well, I would maybe add them at the end, so so it'd just be easier to say, okay, well, this is 1A1 or one, however they.
Yeah. Was it not in there? It's in the reflection.
I didn't see it, but that could have been just me.
Okay. I'm very explicit. Like I say 1A1, and then I say it. Actually, type it out.
I could have. Didn't.
No, that's good if you're not seeing it, because I need to do something different.
But your references were cited properly at the end of the artifact, and they're cited within the text. So overall, I thought you did a very good job. There was a lot of information.
Yeah.
So at first, I was a little kind of overwhelmed just because there was so much. But after you kind of went through it and started reading it, it was very good information. So.
Thank you.
All right, and your 6E. Use the external sources and course content. You develop a document that tells the resources to support the recommendations given by the school improvement team. You identified the available and required resources. So overall, you did a very good job of unpacking the rubric. You clearly described the clinical experience and showed a depth of understanding through the artifact. And this is the only spelling mistake that I saw, but I'm not the grammar queen. On page 14, Dibbles is spelled Dibbles. So just go back and correct that one. And I loved your graphs and how you highlighted the resources. They were very easy to see. And the same thing for this one. That's just a preference about putting the headings and subheadings on the same side. And I didn't see the descriptors again, but you could have put them in there and I didn't see them clearly. So I just go back and check on that. And also your references are cited at the end of the artifact and within the artifact. So overall, you did a great job. It's just a little tweaks. And it's totally up to you if you want to do it that way or not. So.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Aaron, were you able to get your reviews done?
Oh, yes, I'm ready.
Okay. All right. You go. You got Shinati and me.
So I'm going to try my best to make the pronunciation. Is it Shanetta?
Yeah, Shanetta.
Shanetta.
Okay. I know I've heard it several different ways. So, Shanetta, just let me follow up on a quick comment in reference to the heading. As Stacy was talking, I was scrolling through to find out exactly what maybe she was referring to, which I didn't even see it when I went through your artifact. And I'm thinking an example would be as far as the subheading. And Stacy, I may be not even talking about what you were talking about, but I think as far as APA is concerned, I'm going to go to a specific example, and maybe it's what you were referring to. So give me a minute. Let me go back to where I was at. But there was a point where some of the subheadings weren't like completely shifted to the left.
Right.
Is that what you were talking about, Stacy?
Yeah, some of them started with the beginning of the paragraph, and that's what she was talking about as far as it being APA style. So.
Okay.
It's the heading, and then the subheading is indented.
Right.
Also needs the subheading because it's hanging already, so it looks funny. But it's
right.
They're not true headings or subheadings. And I was just following AP. And it looks funny. But maybe I should go back.
I think APA is confusing.
It's very
Yes,
confusing.
it is.
Very hard to follow.
So I'm not the one to check on that all the time.
Well, I wouldn't even have thought about that being an APA format and style. It's just the way I've done it, I guess. And I'm thinking, well, that's not how I did it. So I'm just gonna make a suggestion as far as that. She don't have to do it if she don't want to.
Yeah, and I'm still trying to scroll through and find one specific. I see exactly where all of them are indented, and I know, Shanetta, you did mention that you are familiar with what I'm talking about, but like on page 13, you have this subheading information and data presented. That's all the way to the left, but then the one below says the school vision, and that one's indented, and I guess that's what you're saying. That's how you normally do it. So I'll go ahead and get started with the comments that I have in reference to 6D. And I have a lot of windows pulled up, so I'm scrolling through again. Forgive me. Chanel, your research I thought was phenomenal. You know how you always start off with your stakeholder collaboration research. I think that's a great idea. It's something that I will take back and retweet some of my artifacts and put a heading where it says research, because I love that feature about both your 6D and your 6E. So that's a take back of something that I really love that maybe I can go back and utilize as well. The bold-faced headings were, of course, very organized, easy to follow. And as far as your unpacking the rubric, I think you unpacked it, you packed it, you unpacked it again, and packed it, and it was. I thought that it was well unpacked. Like Stacy mentioned, there was a lot of information. I was overwhelmed at first too, but when you start looking at the organization of it, I mean, it did flow, and each section had a purpose, and I was able to really understand, your logic behind each one of your sections and how you had decided to put together your artifact. So just a small suggestion as far as the rubric is concerned. You know how it says extends feedback as a recommendation for the incorporation into the SIP plan, and you made a note on page 12 that you were going to present it on July the 12th.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, how did that go?
It went okay. I didn't get to present a lot of the information because they were busy. I'm kind of on the back burner. I'm the last one out, but it was interesting because we had our SIT team actually broke up some of the stuff that I was going to say anyway.
Right.
It worked out pretty well.
Had you thought about including some of that conversation when you go back and revise this artifact? Include those.
I guess that would be good to do. I didn't think about that, but I will. I didn't think about that. Thank you. I will do that.
Okay, moving on to the quality of it. Just a small suggestion, like Stacy said, you can do this unless you don't want to, that's fine. But on page 124, you gave that slide with your references, which you did a better job than I did to show exactly where your recommendations were. Obviously, my feedback, mine weren't clear, but yours were very clear because they were on page 124 and labeled. However, I thought maybe you can elaborate on this information a little bit more, because you did elaborate in artifact 6E. You know how you put the small table in 6E, and then you put on the right-hand side of that list your resources, and it said like time for schedule to be created by the EC staff. You put master schedule, time for the schedule to be created by the EC staff. I thought those were very specific ways that you could help with implementing the moving forward with specific. So in other words, what you put in 6E, what I just noted, you can probably put also in 6D as well.
Okay.
But I put it on your peer reviews in specific if I'm not clear enough. Also, just out of curiosity, what are the ways that the regular ed and special ed teachers could possibly collaborate? In other words, like what would that look like specifically? I mean, you noted it, but I'm wondering, like in detail, maybe you can elaborate on that as well in your artifact.
Okay.
Another suggestion, maybe have a brief description. Now, this is probably something you may not do, but if I were you, I probably wouldn't do it either. However, APA says to put a small sentence behind each one of your, on the, you know how you have figure 1, figure 2, figure 3?
Yeah.
You know, and also have a little sentence.
Sentence
It would
describing
take forever to go back and do that. But
Okay.
so the other suggestion was maybe delete the author note on both 6D and 6E because it's the same as the artifact. I mean, it kind of repeats itself. But overall, I love the very, very smooth transitions. I loved and Stacy, the descriptors. I did see them at the very end, and I think Shanetta, that's where you were referring to those last sentences, the last paragraph.
Last paragraph.
On both of those artifacts. So the required descriptors were explained from pages 124 through page 124 and page 126 on 6D. And then last feedback on 6D, I thought your artifact, and I apologize for taking up a lot of time.
No, you're okay.
It's a big artifact. I apologize for writing such a big.
How many Aaron, how many pages did you see on 6D?
I think it was like close to 130.
Okay. See, it only shows me 8.
But I listened. I love the data. I mean, you cannot go wrong. I mean, you know, I was like, wow. I mean, you can really understand if you guys hadn't had a chance to take a look at her data and those graphs. I mean, if you decided on a piece of data that you needed, it's there.
I'm not gonna lie, I didn't read the whole thing, but I did look at it.
I wouldn't read the whole thing either.
It only shows me having 80 pages. So I don't know. I know we had talked about last time. Sometimes if there's over a certain amount of pages, it'll cut it off, or I don't know. But I've got your reference page, but I don't think I have all the appendix. Maybe that's what it is.
I can make that up.
I don't know, but I see where Aaron, where you're talking about in the reflection, it has the standards, but I'm talking about maybe at the end putting descriptors and labeling the descriptors like 1C1 is.
Oh, like spell out what the descriptor actually said.
Yes, just so it's easier to pick up. Like I mean, right off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you what 1C1 is. I'd have to say, okay, let me go back and look. And having that at the bottom of that artifact, it's just easier to say, scroll down and say, okay, well, 1C1 is this right here. So that's what I was saying as far as putting the descriptors in.
I think a lot of those, Janetta, actually uses them almost verbatim of what the descriptor says, but you change it around, you tweak it just a little bit. But like in Mr. Ramsey's, he did what you were describing, Stacy, like Matthew, Mr. Ramsey, I'm sorry, you actually put the exact descriptor beneath the table.
Yeah.
Not, you know, verbatim. Whereas Shanetta, you kind of like tweak it, which I understand now what you're saying, Stacy. But that's it as far as 6D in a very specific. And one other point I love that the email that you put in there, that was a great way to reference how you were collaborating with your principal, Shanetta, in reference to trying to plan the focus group session. I'm going to try my best to go a little bit quicker on 6E. Let me pull up.
Why don't
back in?
Yeah, why don't we stop and go on back in with that same code, all right?
Okay.
It'll take a few minutes. It might take between 3 to 5 just to get everything set up, all right?
Okay.
All right. I'll see you guys in a few minutes.
Okay.